Hi, this is Youth Marketing Academy, Tuesday, October 9th. Gani and Graham with you live, both of us still on the south side of the equator. Graham, how are you doing?
Doing great, Gani. How are you?
I'm doing great also. Let's talk a little bit about mobile here because it's a really important part of the lives of youth. And also, well, you've just written a book about it, right? Mobile youth book.
Mhm.
And if you're listening, you haven't checked that out, make sure that you check it out. Uh, Talking about mobile, a lot of people might think that the best mobile phone out there is, well, it's a toss up between Apple and Samsung phones right now, right?
Mm.
But if we actually go out there and ask people, we might get a different response. And now I'm finding that a lot of people are actually what's deep in their heart. It's not always the phone that has the latest features, but sometimes it's the phone that has the most emotional attachment to their memory in their memories, right? Did you
Mm.
find this too, Graham?
Yeah, I think whilst the iPhone is undoubtedly a popular phone, and maybe the Samsung series as well, what we're looking at is that you're going to find very different answers. Everybody has a different opinion about what their favorite phone is. And what's interesting is that even though the iPhone has sold substantial amounts of units, the best-selling phone of all time is a lot older. We've got to go way back to 2003, Garni. And I don't know if you remember this one, but the Nokia 1100. Does that ring a bell with you?
Oh yeah, it's one of my first phones. I think it's like one of those phones that even if you have a phone, you have to have that phone just in case, right?
Right. So it's sort of a chocolate bar sized phone, maybe a bit smaller, very basic SMS feature. I think it had a torch on it as well, particularly for the sort of developing markets. And this phone sold 250 million units. And even the successor of this phone, the Nokia 1110, sold 170 million. So between these two phones, over 400 million units sold, which is just phenomenal. And I think we kind of forget what companies like Nokia did right back in the day. I know they're struggling at the moment, and they're nowhere near what Apple are able to do at the moment. But back then, we're talking 2003 to 2006. It was the golden era for Nokia, and phones like the 1100 were really at the forefront of that.
Yeah, and interestingly, maybe back then one of the reason that it's so successful was, well, they're number one player. There's not a lot of other guys doing like what they were doing.
Mm.
But looking, sorry, fast forward to today, I mean, Nokia is really pushing like Lumia, right? The new phones, and they're making deals with the phone operators, trying to, making it so that they can sell the phone at a lower price and all these
Mm.
things. They're subsidizing, and Nokia is subsidizing it heavily. But it's kind of like they've forgotten about this phone that actually meant something to a lot of people, the 1100
Yeah,
series.
yeah, and it's important because there's a strong emotional connection. I mean, even if you look at what people talk about the Nokia 1100 today, and even though they may be a Samsung or an iPhone owner, they'll remember the 1100 with some degree of nostalgia. There's a strong emotional bond with that phone. It was the first real phone that they had, like you said. And, many people remember Snake fondly, even though
Mm.
it's nothing like the app games that you can get now.
Mm.
And I think this is a key lesson, really, for developing products for young people. It is about building on the places where you have that love and not going looking for it elsewhere.
Mm.
And I think one of the mistakes Nokia has made is building the wrong beachheads, as we call them. Building in the wrong places. They're innovating in the wrong places at the moment. They're trying to be what Apple are and build where the Apple fans are, and win over the Apple fans by virtue of the strength of their features and so on. But what they need to be doing is going back to these Nokia 1100 fans
Mm.
and building on that.
Mm.
I think there may be it may be difficult to do that internally because there's a degree of acceptance that maybe they aren't the cool guys like Apple or Samsung, and maybe they are a lot more functional and reliable than these guys. But hey, brands like Toyota have successfully built, their brands on the basis of reliability. So I don't think it's such a bad thing.
Mm. 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 Yeah, yeah, built on your DNA basically, right? don't try to be a cyborg, just like adding new parts that doesn't match. But back up a little bit here. You mentioned the word beachhead. Maybe it's good to explain what that means first.
Right. Well, a beachhead is obviously is borrowed from military lexicon, and basically, a beachhead is a position of strength which you can build on, and it's a position within a market which is easily defended. And if you take it in the marketing context, brands have fans, and fans love brands, and they love the products, and even if the brand screws up, they're very forgiving. And that area of the market is called a beachhead because it's easier to launch products into that beachhead. It's easier to generate word of mouth. And you look at, for example, what happens with Apple products when they launch. There's a distinct beachhead there, which Apple knows how to nurture. So every brand needs to have them, but only few brands actually recognize them because, to most brands, they only have customers, you
Mm,
know, missing out.
mm, mm. And I guess using the military metaphor, it's losing your beachhead is the worst thing that could happen, right? Once that's gone, then you lose the whole market basically. Now, in the youth marketing 101 book, we talk about content and context, and I think this is what the story is about, really, right? We talk about what a product means and what a product does. It's two different things. Like features, people sell features, but really what people buy, what the customers buy, is the what product means, right? And with Nokia, we're talking about the fact that it actually means something. The Nokia 1100, for example, right? But I'm finding that a lot of brands, when they realize this, okay, we need to mean something, but what does our brand mean to people? And then they start doing surveys and they just ask everyone. They're getting the wrong kind of feedback, I think. And the worst thing sometimes they do is they don't just ask everyone. They ask maybe like their agencies, like, okay, what's out there? What's cool? What's new?
Yeah.
And sometimes it's just an echo chamber, right? The agency just tells them what they want to hear. When really we're talking about beachhead is here. It's all about the beachhead, right? It's not about the mass market, but it's about knowing what the beachhead wants.
Yeah, we talked about this in yesterday's program, didn't we? In
Mm,
the example of Walmart
mm,
going out and surveying its market.
mm,
And that's the problem because the market is a collection of people who could be non-buyers, they could be buyers, they could be customers, they could be fans, they could be critics. You don't know. And by going out and interrupting these people, you're going to incur the negative wrath of the people that don't want to be part of it, or people that don't have a vested interest in your product. The Nokia 1100 fan, loves that product and cares about it. But the guy who never owned 1100, but you're asking, he's not going to give you an answer which has, he's emotionally invested in or has the best interests of that 1100 in it. So I think that's the problem, is that an agency by default only knows marketing based on shelf space, right?
mm,
The whole premise that, you have a fan base that exists by virtue of the fact that you've bought a product or you're a member of a fan club and so on.
mm,
But today the dynamics have changed a lot. So when you want to innovate and develop your products, you've really got to understand who the fan base are and not go out there and do the easy things like try and talk to them on Facebook and so on,
mm,
because
mm,
that involves everybody. And customers really don't care about the product; they only really care about the price.
mm. Yeah, exactly. And just one little point here, like before we close this up, this is not just something that, well, Nokia did wrong, but this is something that a lot of brands got wrong, right? And even the best brands don't always get it right. But
Mm.
it's all a matter of whether or not they can do something about it afterwards.
Mm.
Mm,
We've got a lot of examples. I mean, even the brands that we rave about in our books, companies like Google, and they launched Google Plus without building it on a beachhead. Amazon went into the music market, and even Apple when it went into publishing. Good examples of great brands that got smacked back as a result of trying to build castles in the sky. Innovate in the wrong places.
mm, mm. Yeah, man, it's interesting to see what they do afterwards, right after they make that mistake. And I think maybe this is what makes them great brands, like Google with the Google Plus. It's not as successful as they thought, but now they're trying to rebuild it, not by making the product better, but by trying to build a different type of beachheads, right? It was before it was very male executive type of thing, pushing it out, and now they're trying to build beachheads with the younger audience, right? Trying to find out what that means. So that's really cool. All right, Graham. Anything else you want to add before we close this up?
It's good. If you want to find out more, go to the yesterday's radio show and listen to the story that we told about Walmart and Pitbull. That'll
Yeah.
give you some background into what happens when you go out there and try and work with the customer base as opposed to fans.
Yes, exactly. And of course, you can find that episode and other episodes in the Youth Marketing Academy. That's it for today's show. Thanks, Graham, for your time.
Thanks, Gani.
All right, so this is Gani Gunto with youthmarketingacademy.com for October 9th, Tuesday. So we'll see you tomorrow, okay? Take care.